From orphan to Queen Esther's hidden beginnings. Esther was a young Jewish woman. She lived many years ago in the vast land of Persia. She was an orphan, her parents sadly no longer with her. Her cousin Mordecai, a kind and righteous man, lovingly took her into his home. He cared for her as if she were his own precious daughter. He instilled in her the ways of their people and their faith. Esther grew up under his watchful and caring eye. She learned the importance of loyalty and trust in God. Her early life was simple, yet filled with quiet dignity. In those days, King Xerxes ruled over the mighty Persian Empire. He was a powerful king, known for his grand displays of wealth. One day, he decided to host an extravagant banquet. It lasted for 180 long days. Nobles and princes came from all corners of his kingdom. After this, he held another feast for 7 days in Susa, the capital city. During this feast, he summoned his wife, Queen Vashti. He wished for her to display her great beauty. But Queen Vashti, for her own reasons, refused to obey the king's command. The king was furious with Queen Vashti's defiance. His advisors counseled him that her actions could not be ignored. They feared other women in the kingdom might follow her example. So, King Xerxes made a swift decision. He decreed that Queen Vashti would no longer be queen. She was banished from his presence forever. Now, the royal throne needed a new queen. A search began throughout all the provinces of Persia. The most beautiful young virgins were to be brought to the palace. From them, the king would choose his new queen. Esther, whose Jewish name was Hadassah, was among the young women chosen. She was exceptionally beautiful and possessed a gentle spirit. Mordecai had instructed her not to reveal her Jewish heritage. He wisely knew this information could be dangerous. Esther listened to her cousin's counsel as she always had. She found favor in the eyes of Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the women. He provided her with the best preparations and attendance. Esther's quiet grace and obedience set her apart. Soon she would face a destiny far greater than she could imagine. Her faith would be her strongest shield. A vile plot. Haman's malice and a people in peril. After some time, King Xerxes promoted a man named Haman. Haman the Agagite was elevated above all the other nobles. He became the king's most powerful official. The king commanded that everyone should bow down to Haman. They were to pay him great honor whenever he passed by. All the royal officials at the king's gate did so. They bowed low and paid homage to Haman. This was the king's direct order. Haman reveled in this show of respect and authority. His heart swelled with pride and arrogance. He expected nothing less than complete submission. However, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, refused to bow down to Haman. Mordecai would not kneel before him or pay him such homage. He was a Jew, and his allegiance was to God alone. The royal officials noticed Mordecai's defiance. They questioned him day after day, but he would not yield. They then reported Mordecai's refusal to Haman. They wanted to see if Mordecai's behavior would be tolerated. When Haman learned that Mordecai would not bow, he was filled with uncontrollable rage. His pride was deeply wounded by this single act of defiance. Haman's fury was not just directed at Mordecai. He learned that Mordecai was a Jew. In his wicked heart, Haman decided that punishing one man was not enough. He plotted to destroy all of Mordecai's people. He planned the annihilation of every Jew throughout the entire kingdom of Xerxes. Haman spoke deceitfully to King Xerxes. He claimed there was a certain scattered people whose customs were different. He said they did not obey the king's laws. He convinced the king that it was not in the king's interest to tolerate them. Haman even offered a vast sum of silver to fund the destruction. The king, easily swayed, gave Haman his signet ring. This ring allowed Haman to issue decrees with royal authority. So a decree was written and sent to all 127 provinces. It commanded the destruction, killing, and annihilation of all Jews. Young and old, women and children were to be killed on a single day. This day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, was chosen by casting the pur or lot. When Mordecai learned of this terrible edict, he tore his clothes. He put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the city wailing loudly and bitterly. The news spread, causing great mourning among the Jews. A queen's courage, risking all for her people. When Esther's attendants told her about Mordecai's public grief, she was deeply distressed. She sent clothes for him to wear, but he refused them. Esther then sent Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, to find out what was wrong. Mordecai told Hathach everything about Haman's evil plot. He explained the exact amount of money Haman had promised for the Jews' destruction. He gave Hathach a copy of the terrible decree. Mordecai urged Hathach to show it to Esther. He implored her to go before the king. She must beg for mercy and plead for her people. He reminded her of her position for such a time as this. Esther knew the grave danger she faced. There was a strict law in Persia. Anyone who approached the king in the inner court without being summoned would be put to death. There was only one exception: if the king extended his golden scepter. Only then would that person's life be spared. Esther had not been called to see the king for 30 days. To go uninvited was to risk immediate execution. She sent a message back to Mordecai explaining this dire situation. Her heart must have been filled with fear. The weight of her people's fate rested upon her. Mordecai's reply was firm. He warned Esther not to think she alone would escape. If she remained silent, deliverance for the Jews would arise from another place. But she and her father's family would perish. He powerfully asked, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?" Esther then made a courageous decision. She sent word to Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa. They were to fast for her. They should not eat or drink for 3 days and 3 nights. She and her attendants would do the same. Then she declared, "I will go to the king, even though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." On the 3rd day of the fast, Esther put on her royal robes. She stood in the inner court of the king's palace. She positioned herself opposite the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, his heart was moved. He found favor in her sight. He held out to her the golden scepter that was in his hand. Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. The king asked her, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom it will be given to you." Her initial brave step had succeeded. Deliverance and celebration, the dawn of Purim. Esther, showing remarkable wisdom and patience, did not immediately reveal her true request. Instead, she invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. The king agreed. At the banquet, as they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther her petition. She replied with another invitation. She asked that the king and Haman attend a second banquet the next day. She promised to reveal her request then. Haman left the first banquet joyful and in high spirits. But seeing Mordecai still refusing to bow, his anger flared anew. He went home and boasted to his wife and friends, yet complained bitterly about Mordecai. They advised him to build a gallows, 50 cubits high, and ask the king in the morning to hang Mordecai on it. That very night, King Xerxes could not sleep. He commanded the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be read to him. He was reminded that Mordecai had uncovered a plot to assassinate him. The king asked what honor Mordecai had received for this. His attendants replied that nothing had been done for him. Just then, Haman entered the outer court. He had come to ask the king to hang Mordecai. Before Haman could speak, the king asked him, "What should be done for the man the king delights to honor?" Haman, thinking the king meant him, described a lavish public honor. The king then commanded Haman to do all this for Mordecai the Jew. Haman was utterly humiliated, forced to parade his enemy through the city. At the second banquet, King Xerxes again asked Esther for her request. This time, Esther spoke with great courage and emotion. "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king was shocked and demanded to know who dared to do such a thing. Esther declared, "An adversary and enemy, this vile Haman." Haman was terrified. The king, in a rage, ordered Haman to be hanged on the very gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Haman's plot was exposed, and his downfall was swift and complete. With Haman gone, King Xerxes gave his signet ring to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king to revoke Haman's evil decree. Since a royal edict could not be repealed, the king allowed Esther and Mordecai to write a new decree. This new decree, sent throughout the empire, granted the Jews the right to assemble and protect themselves. They could destroy any armed force that might attack them and their families. On the 13th day of Adar, the Jews successfully defended themselves against their enemies. They did not take any plunder. To commemorate this miraculous deliverance, Mordecai and Esther established the festival of Purim. It is celebrated annually with feasting, joy, sending gifts of food, and giving to the poor, remembering God's faithfulness and Esther's incredible bravery.